So simply close your eyes. Those of you online, mute yourself. And let's chant Om 3 times. Om Shanti. Well, thank you all for coming. What I want to do is explore together this idea of a presence that's available to us and actually active in our lives, but often seems hidden from our view. And it's difficult to explain or understand it in the way that the mind likes to comprehend things and have some control over them. But it is something that we can experience. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. I'll start with the word God. Right? The word God has so many different meanings. Generally, in our world, this refers to a supreme being that exists somewhere, right? and that's omnipotent and omnipresent, etc. In the yoga tradition, we don't think of any spiritual presence that's separate from us, that's different from us. Rather, we think of the spirit or the divine or the God consciousness as something that's in all of us, in all of creation. That's more the yogic understanding. The word grace, in its kind of maybe traditional religious sense, refers to a force or power that's given by the Supreme Being without the necessity of deserving it. Right? It's simply freely given, unmerited, is the way it's sometimes described, unmerited. I don't want to use grace in that traditional way. I want to use grace to describe something that we can experience as an energy or a power that's active in our lives. And my sense is that it is active in our lives already, but that we don't understand it, and it's easy to dismiss it. And for that, I'll go into a little more detail. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, that the idea that it's a teaching from the yoga tradition, that while there is a diverse world of separate forms, beings, plants, etc., in the yogic understanding, there's a unifying consciousness beneath or in addition to that diversity. However, we tend to see and understand ourselves as separate. That's the prevailing messages of our culture. We identify ourselves as a body-mind, and we develop this sense of who we are based on that sense of separation. And that sense of separation immediately creates a problem for us, because as separate, we're already a little insecure, something's missing, we're not complete, and the messages of our culture encourage us to go about acquiring and achieving the things that will make us happy or secure or safe. And we see that in the individual level, where people feel like they need to arrange their lives in a certain way to be a happy life. And we see that intention to acquire security on a macrocosmic scale in our world, where one country is fighting with another country over the resources and the territory, etc. We see so much suffering caused from this competition to acquire or achieve the things that will make us happy. And all of that effort compels us to dwell so much in the mind, measuring, planning, judging, arranging. Our lives become an endless kind of effort to make everything work. Does this all resonate with you all? Mm-hmm. Any question about anything I'm saying, speak up. And that tendency to dwell so much in the head sort of sustains that sense of separation. Because it's true, in the head, we are separate. Right? But we're missing the experience of our hearts, where we can feel more connection. Fortunately, we are also inspired to fall in love with each other, and there we do sense connection. But as long as we see the world through the rational reasoning mind, we will always tend to dismiss anything that's not scientifically. So therefore, when some kind of incredible synchronicity happens, like, oh my gosh, I felt guided to do this, at least for me, I know my rational mind, I said, oh, well, it was just an accident. Whenever some synchronicity happens, whenever some guidance comes, it's so easy to dismiss it as just an accident or fluke. But recently, I was given two interesting examples of this. And what I'm going to suggest that we do is explore and reflect and see if we can't begin to identify past experiences or future experiences as they arise that actually are an example of this kind of energy that's somehow active in our lives in a benevolent way to help us grow and awaken spiritually. Now, I'll give a very mundane example first. I went camping last weekend. Very mundane example. After one night, I went with two other friends. After the first night of camping, one of my friends said, oh, I didn't sleep well at all. My air mattress had a leak in it. And during the night, all the air leaked out because I'm laying on it, and I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't, of course, repair it. But he said something remarkable about this experience. He said, well, I was packing. I thought I had everything ready. I was completely packed. But then a voice in my head said, no, go into the closet and rummage through your other miscellaneous items that could be used for camping and see what else. And I thought to myself, no, I think I've got everything. But somehow that voice wouldn't let go. And it told me, oh, look, all right. So I went through this box and I looked through the box and there was this patch kit. And I said to myself, no, I've never brought that patch kit. I've been using the same equipment all these years. It's never failed. There's no reason to bring that. And he said, I actually was arguing with my mind. I said, no, bring the patch kit. This is a true story. It just happened this past weekend. So we brought the patch kit, and sure enough, after the first night of not sleeping well, he patched the air mattress and it worked fine thereafter. So it's a mundane example, right? And normally I might have said to myself, oh yeah, well, it was just an accident, or somehow a nagging voice. But how is it that kind of thing happens to us? And in this case, it's a kind of mundane example. But I would bet, and maybe I'll ask for a show of hands. How many people feel like you've had something happen like this, where some form of guidance came to you in an important way and really helped you in some important way? Anybody can we see a show of hands? Okay. All right. So most people online and in person are saying, yes, they've had some experience like that. I'll give another example. And this is a little more mind-blowing example. So I read the story about this man, told by this man, who went through a difficult period. He was a healthy man, doing fine in his life, but he went through a period where he got injured. It made it harder to work. He got depressed. He got sick. So 2 or 3 things happened, one on top of the other. I think maybe he had a breakup with a partner, and he really sank into a bad place. And he tells the story of how he was in his apartment by himself, feeling lonely and depressed, trying to read a book. And he noticed someone approaching. His apartment was a basement apartment, but with a window. So he could only see the legs of a person approaching the window of his apartment. And that's not a place where there's a sidewalk or anyone would normally be, right? So he was a little suspicious of it. But as he sat there, seeing only the legs and the person was wearing shorts, he started to feel a wave of well-being, a sense of being cared for that was undescribable to him. But it was a strong feeling, strong enough that he remembered it years later. Years later, he tells in the story, he was out walking. That dark period in his life only lasted a year or two. And then years later, he was in fine shape and living in the same area. And he was out for a walk with no particular destination or intention. And during the walk, he felt compelled to go a certain direction. And then he felt this urge to go to a very specific neighborhood and then to approach a building. And he approached that building. He couldn't figure out why, but he just felt compelled. As he approached the building, he had this strong urge, an inner guidance that told him, send peaceful, healing energy. He opened his heart and he felt this beautiful, compassionate energy emanating. He sent it out. And the interesting thing about the story is he was wearing shorts and he was sending that energy to himself years before. He was standing outside the building in front of the basement apartment window, sending that energy to himself years before. Let the rational mind try to dismiss that example. And it's a true story. I guess you could make up something like that. So what I want to suggest is that the intellect likes to know something in the sense that we really understand it rationally and we can explain it, but this presence and this idea of grace is something that's beyond the capacity of the limited mind to grasp, beyond the realms of time and space. That's how this person could have this experience of sending healing, loving energy to himself, trying to tell himself that everything was going to be okay, to hang in there. Because this kind of experience can exist outside of the normal limitations of time and space. However, while the mind and the intellect can't understand something in the traditional sense, we can experience the energy, the impact, the power in various ways. And I'm suggesting that we do experience it, right? That it does act on our lives, right? And that this grace is not something that comes from a supreme being outside of us, but it's actually a presence inside of us and inside of everyone, active in our lives, that's calling for us, calling experiences to us, that's guiding us in various ways, and that we can learn to become more and more open to that presence and learn how to tune into it and experience the guidance or the strength that's available to us. There are different ways to talk about it or understand it. And I want to take some time now to speak about it in a few different ways today and a few more ways next Wednesday. One of the ways that I believe we experience this spiritual presence is when we align ourselves with its energy. And one of the ways that we align ourselves or experience it is through love, and in particular, unconditional love. What I mean to say is, if there's a spiritual presence inside of us, that we call God consciousness or spiritual consciousness. It's hard to know what that is and define it, but we know it by its expression. And one expression of that presence is love, unconditional love. And I want to read from a few sources, or refer to a few sources. Years ago, I heard a Buddhist teacher say this. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty close to what he said. This was a Buddhist master. It was actually Jack Kornfield quoting him, and I'm quoting Jack Field quoting the Buddhist teacher, who said, we are made out of love. Everything in nature is made out of love. And it's the nature of love to express itself. And love calls for an ever widening and deepening of being. That was the basic teaching from this Buddhist teacher. I want to touch from a few other sources on the same issue. Here's from Khalil Gibran. Many of you know Khalil Gibran's book, The Prophet, where the prophet speaks about various topics on faith, on community, on love, on pain. So here's from the prophet Khalil Gibran on love. When love beckons to you, follow him. Though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him. Though the sword hidden amongst his pinions may wound you, pinions being feathers. And when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams, as the north wind lays waste the garden. So you see that as Khalil Gibran speaks about love, he speaks about love as almost like a being that takes action in one's life. So he's really speaking in exactly the same way, that there's a presence and that energy or the impact of that presence are these things that he describes as love. So there's a little more. And see if you can relate to this. Even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Wow, what a powerful thing to say. So this is to say that one expression or one form of grace that's hidden from us, that impacts in our lives, that comes through the medium, it comes in the form of love, but it both brings us bliss and shakes our lives up, shakes the very foundation of the false sense of self that we've created. And ultimately, you could say that it breaks into pieces this limiting way that we've defined ourselves. So I just found that to be incredibly in sync with this idea of a presence that acts in our lives and takes the form of love. I want to read from another source. This is from a book I read many years ago called Proof of Heaven. Any of you heard of this book? Yeah. Written by, I think he was a neurosurgeon. Yeah, Saraswati is confirming. And very scientifically oriented person who didn't have any beliefs in spirituality or God. I'll abbreviate the story. He fell into a coma, and for a few weeks he was in a coma where he had no interaction with anyone outside of himself. After he came out of the coma, he wrote this book called Proof of Heaven, and I'll read a few sentences from him. Each time I reached the core, so this is what he experienced when he was in the coma. He experienced going to a place that he calls the core. I went deeper than before and was taught more in the wordless, more than verbal way that all things are communicated in the world above this one. I had already been taught the one thing, the only thing that in the best analysis truly matters. And it came in three parts. These are the three things he was taught. From the beings in this place that he calls the core, while he was in a coma, this was transmitted to him without words. You are loved and cherished. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. You are loved and cherished. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. He said, if I had to boil this entire message down to one sentence, it would be this way: you are loved. So this is to say that somehow inside of us and around us, because it's inside of everyone, is this presence that's benevolent, that's seeking to, that's loving us. The impact it seeks to have is for our well-being. I want to pause here for a second. How is this landing so far with you all? Any comments or questions at this point? Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer. I understand your question correctly. How can we tell the difference between some internal guidance that's coming to us or the mind based on fear going through its obsessive thinking about something? Oh, you better watch out for that, or you better watch out for that. And that's all mental constructs that's coming from a fear-based way of being. And this is something that I do want to get to yet tonight, and that is to learn how to quiet the mind so that we can discriminate between fear-based obsessive thinking and a message that's coming to us. And I think the only way to do it is to quiet the mind and really listen with an open heart. As long as we're being strongly influenced by fear-based obsessive thinking, it's very difficult to feel real guidance. So that's where a meditation practice becomes so important, and where faith can make a difference. If you really believe that there is a form of guidance available to you, how do you access it? Everywhere that I've read from multiple traditions, the answer is always only if you're sincerely willing to open yourself and let go of personal preference, then that guidance is available to you and you have access to it. Right? But as soon as your mind is clouded by what you want, what would be nice for you, what would make you look good, what would bring benefit to you, even if it hurts others, if the mind is clouded with all of that, that's all, again, fear-based thinking based on sense of separation that will never allow you to access and be in touch with, attuned with this deeper guidance. Now, in the case of the repair kit, to him, it seemed like just mental stuff. And maybe it was simply fear-based, and maybe it wasn't really some kind of guidance, but it was just an interesting example that just happened. So I couldn't help sharing it. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, it may not have been some grace that was actually coming to him, but it's interesting that that somehow he felt so compelled, even when his own mind was saying, no, I don't need that. Maybe the guidance comes as a nagging, anxious, obsessive thinking in the mind. That also could be possible. Let's do a little exercise based on this idea that one form of expression of that spiritual presence is love and unconditional love. That one way that we know God or the Spirit is by this feeling of love and aligning ourselves with it. Yeah, I think the words I want to use to describe this, there's a natural flow of compassion. Whenever we override or transcend this sense of separation and we feel ourselves connected to each other and the web of life, the natural impulse is to be loving with each other because we know that we're not separate. There's another poem that touches on this. This is from a Christian mystic, Meister Eckhart. He writes, "The most powerful prayer, one well nigh omnipotent, meaning all powerful, is the worthiest work of all, is the outcome of a quiet mind. The quieter it is, the more powerful, the worthier, the deeper, the more telling and more perfect the prayer is. To the quiet mind, all things are possible. What is a quiet mind? A quiet mind is one in which nothing weighs on, nothing worries, which free from ties and from all self-seeking, is wholly merged into the will of God and dead to its own. A quiet mind in yoga means we temporarily, if our minds become quiet, we temporarily transcend this sense of a separate self. And we begin to experience the aspect of our being that's connected with the whole web of life, a sense of oneness. This occurs so many places in the literature of yoga, the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras, in the Vedas, referred to as the Atman, one with the Brahman. And what I mean before we do this exercise is to understand that when we transcend that sense of separation, experience ourselves at one with the whole, the most natural impulse is to be loving. So that experience of love and compassion flowing outward towards others is a natural experience. But we only experience it that way when we're able to rise above this sense of separation. And one of the ways that we rise above it is when we love unconditionally. And that's why I want to try this exercise with you. So I ask you all to close your eyes. Envision someone that you love unconditionally. Someone that no matter what they do, you love them. No matter what mistake they make. It may be easiest with a pet, for example. Your dog or your cat may be the easiest because you know they're innocent. They're free of deception. They're free of manipulation. Right? But you pick whatever makes sense to you. Call that person to mind and hold them in your heart. Call that being into your mind's eye, into your heart. Feel their presence with them. Feel their presence with you. And feel that feeling. No matter what they do, say, no matter what happens, you will always love them. And focus on getting in touch with what that feels like in your heart. You can almost feel it physically as an energy or a movement. Then consider that energy you're feeling is an expression of your own spiritual consciousness. Your unconditional love is a way of aligning yourself with that presence. And the unconditional love itself is a form of grace, a power, a force. Eckhart Tolle says, when you love someone unconditionally, you give. This is a way of giving birth to the Christ consciousness. You allow that consciousness to manifest in you. The Buddhists would call it the presence of the Buddha nature in you. In India, they might call it the compassion of the Divine Mother manifest in the world. See if you can let go of the being that you have used, but hold on to the feeling. And then consider, what would it look like to try to manifest that feeling in other ways in your life? To try to call upon or allow that energy to move you in other moments of your life, besides the moments when you're with this being. Is there any other situation where you may be able to allow that energy to express, to move you? One of the staff members here, I'll share this little anecdote. We used to offer postpartum yoga class. Mothers would come with young babies and take a yoga class with the babies there in the room. Ideally, the babies would sleep, but one of our staff members would come and take turns holding the babies so the mothers could practice. And she loved doing that because holding the babies, she could feel that the bliss of that unconditional love flowing through her.
Yeah.
You can open your eyes. But that's something you might experiment with, is seeking other opportunities to allow that unconditional love to flow through you. And my sense is that there are other situations. I know sometimes when I teach yoga, I put my whole being into trying to create the best experience I can. And that feels a little bit like that. My own personal interest falls away in the name of trying to do something beautiful for someone else. And that's something I'll talk more about also. Concept of selfless service as a form of this. Let me pause again here. Any comments, questions from you all? Meditation is a way that we practice quieting the restless, anxious, fear-based thinking in the mind that identifies with us as a separate self. And that ego-oriented mind is all about trying to keep up an image that's successful, that looks good, that can win the love of other people. It's all based on wanting to acquire love and feel connection, wanting to feel worthy of belonging. And as long as that's sort of dominant in our minds, it's difficult to feel something deeper, more subtle, and profound within us. So we practice meditation, not just to get good at meditation. We practice meditation to be able to quiet that mind and not be dominated by that anxious thinking all the time, and be more receptive and more open to the moment instead of compelled by knee-jerk reaction. Right? Everybody knows what it feels like when something happens and it's like your button gets pushed and you react kind of automatically because it threatens you, or what we say, it triggers your reaction. And as long as you're triggered by life events, you don't have the spaciousness to allow guidance to be there for you, to allow this sort of grace, this presence, to be a part of the equation, a part of the picture. So what Snehan brings up is the importance of a meditative practice that teaches us, that trains the mind how to calm down, how to let go of all that thinking. This is what Eckhart Tolle, or Meister Eckart's poem was referring to, right? The most powerful prayer is the outcome of a quiet mind. When the mind can get quiet, he even says, the quieter it is, the more powerful. To quiet the mind, to the quiet mind, all things are possible. When the mind gets quiet, we begin to attune ourselves and have the capacity to tap into something much bigger than our individual. Some of you are familiar with the book, A New Earth from Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. There's a beautiful passage in that book where Eckhart Tolle talks about the difference between experience ourselves as our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, being aware of them. And he says, I'm paraphrasing, that when you shift from feeling that, identifying with your thoughts and feelings and emotions, when you shift from that to identifying with the awareness that sees them, that there's a big change. The thoughts, feelings, emotions, they're there, but you don't identify with them. They're like clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. And they don't have a hold on you. And he says, when that happens, a higher intelligence begins to function through you. And he says, much greater than the mind's cleverness. That's the way he puts it. Much greater than the mind's cleverness. The mind has a certain amount of ability, intelligence from our experience, but it's very limited. Because the mind, again, doesn't operate beyond time and space. So imagine that you tap into something much bigger than the mind's limited cleverness. But how do we do that? We have to practice. We have to practice. That's the whole idea, is learn how to quiet the mind and allow this deeper sense of who we are to emerge. There's a Rumi poem. I'll just read a few phrases from it. Please forgive, oh, it's not Rumi, it's Hafiz. Sorry, I forgot. It's not Rumi, it's Hafiz. The poem, if you're interested in reading the whole poem, it's called So Many Gifts from Hafiz, So Many Gifts. But just one portion of the poem. Please forgive Hafiz and the friend. In the Hafiz poetry, the friend is capitalized, and it stands for that divine presence. Please forgive Hafiz and the friend if we break into sweet laughter. When your heart complains of being thirsty, when ages ago every cell in your soul capsized forever into this infinite golden sea. What a great passage. I love it. When he says your heart complains of being thirsty, in the language that I'm using, it's the mind that complains of being afraid and needing something. When ages ago, every cell in your soul capsized forever into this infinite golden sea. Rumi uses the same analogy. When your water bead drops into the ocean from where it came, there's no longer a sense of separation. Your water bead is still there. Imagine yourself as a drop of water. And that drop of water falls back into the sea. it's still there. Your drop is not gone. It's still present, but it's indistinguishable from the whole. So the Rumi also uses that exact analogy to communicate this idea that there's an aspect of us. And how do we access that? How do we access that is through meditation. I want to read from another source. This is from Eknath Easwaran. Some of you are familiar with him. Eknath Easwaran. He lived in the Bay Area, actually, in the 1980s. And he wrote commentaries on the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras.
Did he do the Ramayana too? Not sure.
Maybe.
I'm
not sure. Uh-oh. The print is small. I can't read it. I need help. I can't read it. Does anybody have a phone with them?
Yeah.
Okay. I need a phone's light. When we look at unity through the instrument of the mind, we see diversity. When the mind is transcended, we enter a higher mode of knowing, turiya, the fourth state of consciousness, in which duality disappears. In this state, the individual realizes that he is not a physical creature, but the Atman, the self, and thus not separate from God. He sees the world not as pieces, but whole, and he sees that whole as a manifestation of God. Once identified with the self, he knows that although his body will die, he will not die. His awareness of this identity is not ruptured by the death of the physical body. If I were you, I might be thinking that's all well and good for those that transcended the mind completely. But what about us? We have to practice. But it's important to know that we don't have to perfect meditation to experience this presence. But meditation is one way that we gradually learn to attune ourselves. And it helps us in many other ways, right? It helps us in our daily lives. It helps us practice karma yoga. It helps us practice bhakti yoga. We can do another little exercise. As an aspect of bhakti yoga, of coming to believe in this presence, is having something that inspires you to believe it, to feel it, each in your own way. And for that, I'm going to do a little screen share. I think I have it ready. Let me see. Those of you that are there. So in the left column, different symbols that represent the spiritual presence. In the next column, many people come to believe in the presence of a higher power because of a being that seems to embody that spiritual presence, that seems to capable of living, being a living expression of it. So I've just listed different saints. In the tradition of Sanatana Dharma, or the original spiritual teaching of India, there are deities that are personifications of this spiritual presence. Lakshmi, Krishna, Shiva, Hanuman, Durga. For some people, sound is a way of tuning themselves to that presence through the use of mantra, through the chanting of mantras in kirtan, or from music, or from poetry, or from prayer. You could say that, understood in this way, prayer is an opening of one's heart for guidance, a calling out and opening to taking a receptive stance, a willingness to set aside personal preference, personal desires, and opening one's heart to receive guidance. A principle. Someone may not believe in a being, because that's hard for the mind to wrap itself around. But a principle like peace or love, compassion, Swami Satchidananda would sometimes say, peace is your nature. He would say, peace is my God. Forget about beings, the energy of peace. Humility is in season all the time.
Okay.
And for some people, the thing that most inspires them, to believe in a higher power is nature, right? You see the full moon,
Yes.
right? You see the eclipse the other night, right? The sunset, a flower can do it, right? The myriad stars at night. You see a picture of the Milky Way. This unbelievable, overwhelming vastness of the universe. How to account for it? Even each of our bodies is a kind of universe, isn't it so? Made up of trillions of cells. Who did that? Who figured that out? Who created it that way? Yeah, there's something behind all of this. Did anybody find in that graphic, anybody find something that inspires you to feel the presence of a higher power? What is it for you that inspires you to feel that presence? But many people do ignore it. Imagine, many people never touch the earth or rarely touch the earth because our lives are so much about car and street and sidewalk that they never touch the earth or rarely. So there's no contact with that natural world for some city dwellers. Yeah, the beauty of music or chanting is it sort of replaces thought. Right? If you're I don't know if you've all had the opportunity to be in a dynamic kirtan with a group of people, and the sound gets so full, it captures your whole attention, and in a way it replaces all that thinking. The mind is so full with the mantra, the sound vibration, that it's difficult to think of anything else. And then when that chanting comes to an end, there is this resonation of the vibration. And if you can stick with that, it's a beautiful feeling of stillness in the mind. One thing I want to kind of give as a homework, one thing, I'll send you a little article that I've written as something you can read. It's very short, that's very easy. But I want to give a little homework. And the homework is see if you can identify something, some form, something from that graph, some sound, some form, some being, some saint, some deity, something that inspires you to believe in the presence of a higher power. Is there a way that you can make use of that to remind yourself of that presence? Maybe have an image of that thing, whatever it is, on the altar. I have a stone on my altar to remind me about nature, a few of them actually. A picture of a sunset can serve that function. I also have a picture of a deity that's meaningful to me and reminds me of that presence. I also have a light on my altar. So light is not a being, but it has a presence. And it has a meaningful presence in the sense that it's a symbol, right, of something that can guide us through the darkness. Something that can eliminate darkness. So I have on the altar right here behind me, there's a light, an oil lamp. See if you can identify something, and can you find some way of invoking that presence or reminding yourself of that presence on a regular basis. This is to begin to develop in the mind the understanding, the certainty that there is this presence of grace that's available, that we can attune ourselves to. I said it before, but I'll say it. I'll give an example from my personal life. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. I know a few of you that took Raja Yoga TT with me. You've heard this kind of story from me before, so I apologize. But when I was young, I was all about willpower, mastering the mind. Raja Yoga, we call it, learning how to master the mind. But all my efforts to use my will to overcome the craziness in my own mind basically brought me to my knees. That's the way I would say it. And I saw that I can't do it by myself with my limited mind. The conditioning in my mind is too deep and too vast, and it's imperceptible to me many times, my conditioning. I don't even realize that it's there, influencing the way that I see things. So in moments when I got desperate enough, confused enough, I learned that I have to call out in prayer and ask for guidance. But I saw that it only worked if I was really desperate and really willing to let go of any of my own ideas. And I was really willing to do whatever guidance I was being given. If I was still holding on to what I wanted, the answer wouldn't be clear. But as soon as I was completely willing to let go of personal preference and to align myself or to open myself to receive, it was like quieting the mind. It was another way of quieting the mind. Setting my stuff aside, I made space for this. And as soon as I would really take that position, I always got an answer. I always got the guidance. It felt almost, not always, but sometimes it came immediately as soon as I was open that way. And what it made it hard for me to get to it was because sometimes the answer was not good for me. I didn't like it. It made me look bad. Or it was difficult and I didn't want to do it. But the answer came clear. This is the guidance. And once it was clear that way, then I had to go with it. So I learned kind of a hard way, what I would call a form of prayer. And I would suggest that if you can identify some form, something that inspires you, can you also find a way to invoke that presence or form a prayer, opening yourself to receive the guidance from that presence? I used to use it when I was desperate, confused, and I really needed the help. Now, every day. That's the way I started every day. I have my own personal prayer that I've created. That's a way of inviting guidance, even when I don't ask for it. Sometimes I don't even know that I need it. So my suggestion is, if you can identify something that inspires you to believe in that presence, can you find a way to invoke it? Can you find something that represents it for you? And maybe I wasn't thinking of this, but maybe you would be inspired to find your own way of, your own kind of prayer that connects you to that presence. All right, let's do a closing chant. And next week, I'm hoping you can all come back next Wednesday. I want to see if anyone does come up with something that is new for you in terms of a symbol or a form that represents the divine for you, and some way to invoke it or invite that presence to be more a part of your life. And I will send you, maybe I'll send you a few things. I'll send you the little article I wrote about Can We Know God, and maybe a few of the poems. But let's end with a closing chant. Many of you know this chant, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Its meaning is, it's chanted as a way of sending peaceful energy outward. So when we chant it 3 times together, you can feel that you're generating inside yourself a healing energy, a peaceful energy, and you're sending it outward through the heart. You can hold in your mind's eye anyone you know of in need of prayers as we chant this mantra. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. The light of truth dispel all ignorance.
Victory to that light.
Jai Sri Satguru Maharaj Ki.
Jai.